In a quaint village by the sea, life flowed like the gentle waves. Fishermen cast their nets at dawn, returning with the sun to their families. The air smelled of salt and fish, blending with the scent of flowers from tiny gardens. Children laughed and played, their voices mingling with the calls of seagulls. The village was a tapestry of simple joys and routines. Every morning, vendors set up stalls selling fresh catch and handmade crafts. Afternoons were spent mending nets or resting under the shade of ancient trees. Evenings brought stories shared around fires, tales of the sea and its secrets. Life was predictable, comforting. The villagers shared a bond as tight as a sailor's knot. They knew each other's stories, fears and dreams. There was an unspoken understanding, a rhythm that everyone followed, until the day Nerina arrived, that is. It was a foggy dawn when Nerina first appeared. The fishermen were the first to spot her, drifting on the waves. Her long dark hair flowed like seaweed, and her eyes held the depth of the ocean. She was a vision, ethereal and otherworldly. The villagers gathered at the shore, mesmerized by her beauty. She had no boat, no belongings, just the clothes on her back, wet and clinging to her slender frame. She spoke little, her voice soft and melodic, like the whisper of the sea breeze. Despite her mysterious arrival, the villagers welcomed her. They gave her food and clothes, and she found shelter in an old fisherman's cottage. There was something about her that drew people in, a quiet grace that was hard to resist. Nerina moved with an elegance that seemed almost unnatural. She was kind and gentle, but there was a sadness in her eyes, a longing that no one could understand. The villagers were curious, but they respected her silence, hoping she would reveal her story in time. Nerina's beauty was unlike anything the villagers had ever seen. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, with a slight shimmer as if kissed by moonlight. Her eyes were a deep blue, mirroring the depths of the ocean. She moved with a fluid grace, her every gesture captivating. She often stood at the shore, looking out to the horizon. Her presence was enchanting, drawing the villagers to her. Children would gather around, listening to her sing haunting melodies in a language they did not understand. Her voice was mesmerizing, like a siren's call. Men and women alike were taken by her. They admired her beauty and grace, but were also wary of the mystery that surrounded her. There was an aura of sadness about her, a sense of longing that was palpable. Despite her ethereal beauty, Nerina was humble and kind. She helped with chores and shared in the villagers' daily tasks. Yet she always seemed distant, as if a part of her belonged elsewhere. The villagers could not shake the feeling that Nerina was hiding something profound and unsettling. Nerina quickly became a part of the village. She learned to mend nets, clean fish, and help with the daily chores. Her presence brought a certain lightness to the village, a gentle touch that softened the harshness of their lives. She was particularly fond of the children, often telling them stories of the sea. Her tales were filled with wonder and mystery of underwater kingdoms and magical creatures. The children adored her, and their parents were grateful for her gentle care. Despite her integration, there were whispers. Some villagers were uneasy, sensing that there was more to Nerina than she let on. They noticed the way she would stare at the sea, as if it were calling to her. Her songs, though beautiful, were tinged with a melancholy that was hard to ignore. Still, life went on. The villagers accepted Nerina, even if they did not fully understand her. She became a part of their stories, a mysterious figure who had brought a touch of magic into their simple lives. But the peace was fragile, and the sea had a way of stirring up the past. Section 5. The First Strange Occurrence. The first strange occurrence happened one quiet night. The sea was calm and the village was asleep. Suddenly, the waves began to churn violently, crashing against the shore with an unexplained fury. The villagers awoke to the sound of the tempest, rushing out to secure their boats. As they fought the storm, they noticed Nerina standing by the water, her arms raised towards the sky. She was singing, her voice carrying over the roar of the waves. It was a haunting melody filled with sorrow and longing. The storm seemed to respond to her song, growing fiercer with each note. The villagers were terrified, unsure of what was happening. They watched in awe and fear as Nerina continued her song, her eyes closed and her face serene. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the storm ceased. The sea became calm once more, and Nelima lowered her arms, her song fading into the night. The villagers were shaken. They did not know what to make of what they had seen. Some believed it was a sign, a warning from the sea. Others thought it was Nerina's doing, that she had some connection to the ocean's power. The air was thick with tension, and an uneasy silence settled over the village. Section 6. A growing unease among the villagers. In the days that followed, the villagers could not shake their unease. The memory of the storm and Nerina's song lingered in their minds. They watched her more closely, noticing the way she seemed to communicate with the sea. There were whispers and rumors, stories of sea spirits and ancient curses. Some villagers began to avoid Nerina, afraid of what she might bring. Others were drawn to her, captivated by her beauty and mystery. The village was divided, the atmosphere charged with suspicion and fear. Nerina sensed the change. She saw the way people looked at her, the fear and curiosity in their eyes. She withdrew slightly, spending more time alone by the shore. She continued to help with chores and care for the children, but there was a distance now, a barrier that had not been there before. The children still loved her, still gathered around to hear her stories. But even they could feel the tension, the unspoken questions that hung in the air. The village was no longer the peaceful haven it had been. Something had shifted, and there was no going back. Section 7. The haunting presence of Nerina. As the days turned into weeks, the villagers' fear grew. They began to notice other strange occurrences. Fishermen reported seeing glowing lights beneath the water, moving with an eerie precision. Nets would come back empty, or worse, filled with strange, unidentifiable creatures. The village animals became restless, barking and howling at the sea. The villagers whispered of curses and sea spirits, their fear feeding on each new oddity. They began to see Nerina as the source of their troubles, her presence a constant reminder of the unknown. Nerina, for her part, seemed unaffected. She continued her routine, her face serene and her manner calm. But there was a sadness in her eyes, a deep sorrow that seemed to grow with each passing day. She spent more time by the shore, her gaze fixed on the horizon as if waiting for something. The villagers could feel the tension building. They were afraid of Nerina, but also fascinated by her. She was a mystery they could not solve, a presence they could not escape. The village was caught in a web of fear and curiosity, and there was no telling what would happen next. Section 8. The unraveling of Nerina's hidden past. The village elder, a wise and respected figure, decided to confront Nerina. He believed that understanding her past might bring peace to the village. He approached her one evening as she stood by the shore and gently asked about her story. Nerina's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. She revealed that she was not of this world but of the sea. She was a daughter of the ocean, a being caught between two worlds. She had come to the village seeking refuge, but her presence had disturbed the balance of the sea. The elder listened, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. He understood now why the sea had reacted so violently, why the strange occurrences had begun. Nerina's connection to the ocean was strong, and her longing to return was palpable. He shared her story with the villagers, hoping it would bring understanding. But the revelation only deepened their fear. They saw Nerina as a threat, a being who did not belong. The village was on edge, the atmosphere charged with tension and uncertainty. Section 9. The sea's unpredictability. The sea became more unpredictable with each passing day. Storms would appear out of nowhere and the waves grew more violent. The villagers struggled to maintain their livelihoods, their fear of the sea growing with each passing day. Nerina did her best to help, but her presence only seemed to make things worse. The villagers began to shun her, blaming her for their troubles. They whispered of banishing her, of sending her back to the ocean where she belonged. Nerina's sorrow deepened. She knew she was causing the villagers pain, but she did not know how to fix it. She felt torn between her love for the village and her connection to the sea. She spent hours by the shore, singing her haunting melodies to the waves, hoping for a sign. The tension reached a breaking point one stormy night. The sea raged with a fury unlike anything the villagers had ever seen. They huddled in their homes, praying for the storm to pass. And in the midst of it all, Nerina stood by the shore, her heart breaking with the weight of her decision. Section 10. Nerina's poignant return to the ocean. Nerina knew what she had to do. She could not stay in the village, not when her presence was causing so much pain. With a heavy heart, she walked to the shore, the storm raging around her. She turned to the village one last time, her eyes filled with tears. She sang a final melody, a song of farewell and sorrow. The villagers watched in awe and sadness as she stepped into the waves, the ocean welcoming her back with open arms. The sea calmed as she disappeared beneath the surface, the storm ending as suddenly as it had begun. The village was silent, the air heavy with the weight of what had happened. They had lost Nerina, but the sea had returned to its normal state. The strange occurrences ceased, and life slowly began to return to normal. But Nerina's presence was not forgotten. Her story became a part of the village's lore, a haunting tale of beauty and sorrow. The villagers spoke of her with a mix of fear and reverence, her memory a constant reminder of the sea's power and mystery. Section 11. The Lasting Legend of Nerina. Years passed, and the village returned to its peaceful routine. But the legend of Nerina lived on. The children grew up hearing stories of the girl from the ocean, her beauty and mystery capturing their imaginations. Fishermen would tell tales of seeing her in the waves, her hair flowing like seaweed. They spoke of her songs, haunting melodies that could calm the fiercest storm. The villagers honored her memory, leaving offerings by the shore, hoping to appease the sea spirits. Nerina's story became a part of the village's identity, a reminder of the delicate balance between the sea and the land. The villagers never forgot the lessons they had learned, the importance of respecting the ocean and its mysteries, and so the legend of Nerina lived on, a haunting tale of beauty, sorrow, and the unbreakable bond between the sea and those who live by its shores. The village was forever changed by her presence, her memory a constant reminder of the power and mystery of the ocean.